Hello, my name is Ian Gaida, and today I'll be talking to you about the relationship between tornado strength and terrain height. So we have two competing theories here. One is angular momentum. That is, as the tornado passes over a hill, it spreads out, its radius increases, as such its wind velocity decreases in order to conserve angular momentum. And naturally the inverse would be true. For the force updraft theory, as the parent storm ascends a hill, mechanical lifting forces more air into the storm, which increases its strength and subsequently would increase the strength of any following tornadoes. We had a couple ways of testing these theories. One was looking at radar data gathered over the Black Hills about 2 years ago. We actually had a tornado pass over Spearfish Canyon to look at. This analysis was done with National Weather Service data, and Google Earth provided the terrain height. So the wind velocity pretty closely matches that of the terrain height. If this were the angular momentum theory, we would not expect this. We'd expect this orange line to drop to begin with, for example, and then rise as it got closer to this roughly 1030 point. The other method we had was simulation using a program called CM1 and their analytical soundings. We tried to use soundings observed that day, but unfortunately the air was just too dry for the model to produce any storms. On the top we have a mock-up of the Black Hills that is a bell-shaped curve with height and terrain on the west-hand side. On the bottom we have our control run, which is just no terrain. These left-hand plots have the vorticity, that is the wind rotation at ground level, and the right-hand side has total rain accumulated over the length of the simulation. Things I want to point out are on this top left plot here, we have this splotch of green with a little bit of orange in it that we don't really have on the bottom here. That suggests much stronger rotations on this leading side of the hill than what we would get with the flat terrain. And for the right hand side, I would like to point out that we are getting these stronger winds despite having a much weaker storm. Since we've raised the ground level, this top storm has much less energy to work with as it's higher up in the atmosphere. And naturally, on the right-hand side of the hill, the storm dies out, which further lends credence to the forced updraft theory, as how can you have a tornado when you don't even have a storm? So with all that in mind, current evidence suggests that the overall storm health has a greater bearing on tornado strength than the need to conserve angular momentum. However, there is still work we can do. We can make some changes to the analytical sounding, changing things like atmospheric instability, and we can use some more realistic terrain as well. The Spearfish Canyon tornado went over more of an M-shaped hill, so that's something we could set up in later runs. And that's all I have today. Thanks for listening.